El 16 de abril llega a los cines españoles Warfare, Tiempo, guerra, la película coescrita y codirigida por Álex, Garland y Mendoza, que ya unieron su talento en Civil War el año pasado. La película está basada en la experiencia real de este último y de sus compañeros de pelotón durante una de las refriegas de las tropas estadounidenses con los grupos yihadistas iraquíes en 2006. Por cortesía de A24, hemos podido hablar con los protagonistas, Will Poulter, Dafaro Wonatai, Kit Connor, Cosmo Jarvis y Michael Gandolfini.
It's a really good question. I think the best way that we were able to prepare was the boot camp, which we did for 3.5 weeks prior to shooting, and that really, really had a kind of like two-factor result to it. The first factor being that physically, we were given, albeit a kind of basic and reduced skill set, to be able to sort of like accurately represent Navy SEALs as best we could, within the obvious limitations that come with being actors as opposed to real service people. And then secondly, I think we formed really strong emotional bonds. We all got incredibly close to one another. And so what that meant is that going into the shooting process, there was genuine care, respect, and love between all of the guys that underpinned all of our actions. So the boot camp really set us up both physically and emotionally.
I'll just piggyback off what Will said just now. Everybody's process was a little bit different. I 100% agree that the boot camp was definitely the foundation of building our brotherhood and building our techniques and our knowledge on what we learned. But take it even further, before the boot camp, me specifically, Mendoza, who's the man I get to play, who's our leader, he sent me a bunch of videos regarding, in a sense, air traffic control. A lot of pilots just from your regular airports, and kind of listening to how they talk. He tells me all the time that a lot of ex-military join airport employees and our air pilots. So I was just listening to their radio for a good month before we went to boot camp, just to kind of get an understanding of what the tone, the flow of their speech, because it's very much military. In a sense, military language is a little bit different compared to your civilian, and so it's in a sense an alien language. So there's a lot to learn.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. I mean, if you're gonna speak bluntly, yeah, of course the hardest part was definitely carrying that load. But equally, it was all a challenge. It was all new. I would like to say for all of us, some of us, have been on war projects before, have depicted soldiers before, have went through this, what we call the boot camp before. But for a lot of us, it was new. It was new territory for sure.
That's an amazing metaphor. I hadn't thought.
I haven't thought of it like that either. Yes, it's true. It's very true.
It's very I mean, that's a compliment for the gentleman I represented, more so than me, for sure. But I think we all embrace the kind of military hierarchy and the sort of structure of leadership. I think one of the things we kind of promoted within the group was a culture of leadership. So that meant that whenever someone had a particular area of expertise or was especially skilled, they led in that department, whether that's weapons handling, whether in DeFaro's case that was communication. We all kind of encouraged everyone to sort of take the lead where necessary. But the character that I played was an officer in charge of this group of young men at 25 years old, and that was the reality of the situation. And I think from a casting perspective, they were keen to cast people who, if they weren't exactly the age of their counterparts, their real life counterparts, they looked it, and that was important as well in terms of sort of I think going against the grain of how war films are or have more recently been traditionally kind of cast, whereby these young service people are played by people who are far older, in their 30s and 40s. So it's just another example of where the film strives for authenticity, and I was honored to play a part in the story for that reason.
It was interesting playing a real man who was around, and I had the opportunity to hear a lot anecdotally about him and from other people, and it was I suppose, a feeling of wanting to do right by him and his experience and try and. I mean, we all felt that equally because everybody was playing somebody who was real and sort of everybody owed it to those people to do everything they could within their power to honor those people and their experience. And yeah, so but yeah, I've never been in a situation where I was actually in that situation before, so that was new and it was just great to be entrusted to portray this person.
Yes, of course I did. I mean, you know, it was a lot of pressure. We all had pressure on our shoulders regarding the actors because we all had a true counterpart to, you know, uplift and represent and be responsible for. Of course, I would like to say yes. You know, him being behind the director's chair and that writer's chair was definitely a little more pressure compared to others. But in all honesty, I didn't have a lot of pressure compared to what Ray did. Ray was representing a whole community, and you know, a community that sadly gets unrepresented or misrepresented throughout Hollywood history. So as much as I had pressure, Ray definitely had more pressure on his shoulders than I did. Yeah.
The boot camp was really, you know, key to developing that kind of brotherhood and you know, really kind of getting to learn so much about each other in a short space of time. I think when you go through an experience that is as trying as that and requires so much of you both physically and emotionally, and you do it together, it's unifying, you know. And we sort of joked about the fact that like after 3.5 weeks we felt like we'd known each other for 3.5 years, you know. And we also spent every waking moment with each other outside of the boot camp. We all stayed in the same place, and we ate every meal together. We sort of were kind of inseparable for that period of time, and you know, that was key to being able to represent the gentleman that we were responsible for representing. And also what's really lovely is it's a bond that I think, you know, lives on well beyond the film as well, and that's a beautiful outcome.
Yeah, and just to add on a little bit further, what was beautiful about this set compared to what I assume other sets may be like regarding war films is, you know, OP2, if I assume watch the film, OP2 comes in midway through the movie, halfway through the movie. On your typical movie set, we would meet them halfway through the movie. That the first time they walk in, you know, the first scene when they walk in the door, that's probably when we would meet them for the first time. But that was not what it was like. They were with us through the whole training boot camp. They were with us through the whole filming process before they were even needed. You know, a lot of us are from the States. They could have went back to the States, and they didn't do that. And take it even further, they were on set every single day when they didn't need to be on set every single day. You know, my character as JTAC Communications, I spend a lot of time on the radio talking to other people. I'm really talking to the other actors in OP2. Usually on sets, you'd be talking to whoever, PA, somebody from set who doesn't know the language or doesn't know anything, just reading it from a script. That wasn't the case. These men really came and took their time every single day just to be there for us, and that was a big, and that was a big part of our brotherhood, really. I'll go first. Well, I had multiple different nicknames. You know, I was blessed and very grateful that I got a few nicknames that were representing Ray's nickname. So Dozer, Baby Ray, little Baby Ray was my nicknames. Yes.
Yeah, we had some really good nicknames. My one, I think, just because I was like getting on guys' backs about being on time and getting in vehicles and remembering laundry day and things like that, I was called Daddy. So that was sort of funny, and that came about fairly early on. And yeah, all the guys, you know, developed their nicknames in different ways, and kind of organically through the process. Yes. And it's hard actually sometimes to remember their real names because, you know, there's so much their nicknames now.
Yeah, I mean, I never did theater, So yeah. So in all honesty, that was probably, when it comes to set style of shooting, that was probably the closest I've had to theater. You know, yeah.
Loved it.
I loved it. It was different. You really get to experience, you know, you really get to live in these scenes. You know, a lot of times when they have coverage, they're cutting back and forth, different setups. Takes a long time. You lose that, you know, mojo in the sense, right? But with this one, you know, we've said before, you know, we do, you know, 10, 15 minute, sometimes 20-minute takes for our masters. And so we, like you said, they're on handheld, so they're moving around, they're gliding around. So it very much feels like a play, but also felt like a dance, right? It felt like we were dancing with the camera. What was beautiful about these actors that I worked with is that, you know, on camera or off camera, regarding, you know, as they're panning around, they're in it completely. You know, with Joseph Quinn, he's in it 110% if the camera's on him or not, giving me all of his all. So yes, it felt like a play for sure.
Hard to go and do other things afterwards because we just got used to a certain level of like pace and intensity that was so energizing, and you know the experience was kind of adrenaline fueled, and everyone was, you know, going at 100 miles an hour, and it's hard to go back to, you know, experiences where there's a lot of waiting around and so you're moving at a slower pace. So we were spoiled in that respect.
And also, you know, the camera ops were amazing to the point where everybody on set was amazing to the point where, you know, we didn't have to wait for the crew. A lot of the times as an actor, I would like to say, you don't have to put anyone down, but sometimes, you know, you wait for setups. And that's not was the case at all. They were waiting for us half the time.
Right.
And after our first day, we were 2 days ahead of schedule. And that was a mixture of both the cast and the crew, you know, and their dedication that we put on.
Yeah, everyone pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, it was remarkable. I think all of the things that you listed there were sort of ingredients to the recipe of immersion
of warfare.
Yeah, the dish of warfare.
Also,
it was really.
It was just a very innovative thing to be involved with. It felt innovative. The whole execution of the whole thing and the whole reason for why it came about in the first place, and the way that it was going to be executed and the reason for its inception in the very first place. Everything about it was unique and innovative, and we'll probably never have anything like that again. And even down to the fact that there was a purpose for it to be that was rock solid and inarguable and tangible and clear, and that is a very rare thing to happen. And our involvement as actors was arguably more necessary than in other contexts, because the purpose of this was to simply recreate an event that happened and do it with, you know, due diligence and with care and in the pursuit of the truth, and that never happens really.
Yeah.
Warfare supone una experiencia muy inmersiva e intensa que a buen seguro no dejará a los espectadores indiferentes. El 16 de abril estará disponible en salas y sí, es una película de guerra, pero también se alza claramente como un potente alegato antibelicista. ¡No os la perdáis!